In this example, we have Sonny and Cher has 5 music records and Sonny has 0. And this table shows us the marginal value of each record. So having one record gives Sonny 5 units of benefit or value, and having one record gives Cher 10 units of value or benefit. Getting a second record gives Sonny 4 units of benefit. So he definitely gets value or benefit from having a second record, but that second record isn't quite as valuable to him as that first record was. Right? That's that concept of diminishing marginal value or diminishing marginal benefit. Having a third record gives him 3 units of value. Having a fourth one gives him 2 units of value. And having a fifth one gives him 1 more unit of value. So we see again that each subsequent record that he could have would give him additional value or happiness, but less than the one before. And again, same for Cher. The first one gives her 10 units of value, and then each subsequent record that she has is a little less valuable to her, right? Again, that diminishing marginal value. So again, though, as the question says, Cher has all 5 records and Sonny has none. And so, based on the marginal values of the two people, we're going to see if it might be possible to reallocate some of these 5 records from Cher to Sonny in a way that makes both of them better off. So if Sonny values getting a record more than Cher values that particular record, then they can agree on a price and have an exchange in this so-called marketplace. So let's give it a shot. So let's start with the first possible transaction. So if Cher sells one of her records to Sonny, she'd be parting with her 5th record, which she values at 2 units of utility. And that record would become Sonny's first record, which he would value at 5 units of marginal value or utility or benefit. And so as long as we can find a price that is greater than 2, but less than 5, right? So something that would make both Cher happy because she'd be getting a price higher than what she values the record at, and something lower than 5, which would make Sonny happy because he'd be getting the record for a price less than what he values it at. So any price between $2 and $5 would make both people happy. So you could imagine a price of $3 or $4. Anything between 2 and 5 will make them both happy. So let's assume they go forth with that. So that 5th record from Cher becomes Sonny's first record. And now look what's happened. Both sides have benefited. So think of Cher as the producer, right? She's the one that has the product, the record, and is selling it. So her producer surplus has now increased by the difference of the price that Sonny paid her and the value she attached to that record. Right? And for Sonny, he's the consumer here. He's buying the record. So he's gained consumer surplus equal to the difference between what he values that record at, 5, and what he actually pays for it, whatever the price P is that they agreed on. So the total surplus here, which is equal to producer surplus and consumer surplus, that increased by, let's see, the producer surplus is this, and then the consumer surplus is this. So the positive price and the negative price cancel out, and we're left with 5 minus 2, or 3. So this one transaction where Cher sold one of her records to Sonny created 3 units of new welfare or surplus for the economic players here, Sonny and Cher. All right, so that was our first transaction. Let's see if it's possible to have a second transaction. So if we have a second transaction, Cher would be selling her 4th record, which she values at 3 units, and it would become Sonny's second record, which he values at 4. So as long as the price is greater than 3, which is what Cher values the record at, she'll be happy because then she's getting a price higher than her value for the record. But as long as the price is also less than 4, which is the most that Sonny would be willing to pay for it, then we can have a deal here. We can make both sides happy. So perhaps the price of like $3.50 would do it, right? And so let's say they go ahead with that transaction. So Cher's 4th record becomes Sonny's 2nd record. All right, so now let's see. Producer surplus here for Cher is equal to the difference between the price she gets and the value of the record. Consumer surplus for Sonny increases equal to the value he places on that record minus the price he pays. So together, those add up to the total surplus, which ends up being price minus 3. That's the producer surplus. And then the consumer surplus. And again, the prices cancel out because it's positive and negative, and we're left with 4 minus 3, which is 1. All right, so we've again generated welfare in this market because both sides are benefiting from this transaction. All right, let's see about a 3rd transaction. So if Cher sells a 3rd record, all right, it'll now become, it'll be her 3rd record, which she values at 6, and it would become Sonny's 3rd record, which he values at 3. Okay, so we're going to have a problem here because the lowest value that Cher will sell for is 6, right? So the price has to be at least 6. But the highest that Sonny will pay is 3. So the price has to be less than 3. So this is not possible. You can't have a price that's both higher than 6 but lower than 3, right? So this is impossible. So we should not see this transaction happen. In other words, we're going to stop at just the 2 transactions, right? So we're going to have the first transaction that happens at some price between $2 and $5 and generates welfare equal to $3. And we're going to have a second transaction that occurs at some price between $3 and $4, and that generates $1 worth of welfare surplus. So the total surplus created by both transactions would be 3 from the first one, 1 from the second one, so a total of 4. And if we're looking for a price that would work for both of these, well, looking up here, $3.50 would work for the second transaction, and would actually also work for the first transaction. So that's one possible price for this market, essentially, that we've analyzed here. So the last thing I'd like to show you with this question is actually how we can illustrate it graphically in the same way we have typically done our supply and demand models, right? This is basically a market, a small market with just 2 people, but we can represent what the analysis is that we just did by using our supply and demand framework. So the total number of records in question is 5. So we count down up to 5 on the quantity. And then if we look at the marginal values in the table on the previous page, they go as high as 10. So 10 would be the highest number here. And then we count down. Okay, and remember, Cher is basically the seller here, right? She is the seller here. So she can be represented by the supply curve. So if we mark out her marginal value for each record from the table, then we'll see that we get this positive line here, this positively sloped line. So it'll be something like this. It's not perfectly to scale, but something like this. So this will be basically our supply curve, which is representing Cher's marginal value of each record. And remember that our supply curve typically represents the marginal cost of production for our producers. So we can really think of Cher's marginal value in this table as representing that marginal cost for the producer. All right, on the demand side, we have Sonny, who's our consumer. And so if we plot out his marginal values, we start at the first record is worth 5 units to him. The second record is worth 4. And then the third record is only worth 3. And then we keep going down like that. So we get something like this. So this is our demand curve. And it's, again, representing Sonny's marginal value of each record, right? So that's what our demand curve typically does represent, the marginal value or benefit or utility to our consumers. And then if we illustrate here our equilibrium, right? It's where supply equals demand. So this would be our Q star. It would happen somewhere between 2 and 3. Well, you can't sell part of a record. And in fact, what we had determined was that Sonny and Cher were going to proceed with 2 transactions, right? Sonny's going to buy 2 records from Cher. And when we looked at the price that would facilitate that, our P star here, it's somewhere between 3 and 4. And in fact, we concluded that $3.50 would make both Cher and Sonny happy in terms of the benefit from these transactions, right? And then finally, if we analyze or calculate the consumer surplus, which is given by the area under the demand curve but above the price, this triangle, it would be represented graphically there. And from the producer surplus perspective, it's this triangle here. So the area below the price and above the supply curve. And the total surplus would be the difference between the demand curve and the supply curve. And in this particular example, since we're being discrete, that means we're just looking at one whole unit at a time, right? The total surplus from the first transaction is equal to the difference between the marginal value to Sonny and the marginal value to Cher. So in this case, that was the value to Sonny of that first record was 5. The value to Cher was 2. So the total surplus there was 5 minus 2, or 3. For the second transaction, the total surplus generated was the difference between the marginal value to Sonny, which was 4, and the marginal value to Cher, which was 3. So it was 4 minus 3, or 1. Right, so then the total surplus generated by both transactions was 4, and that's what we showed on the previous slide.